Mugen. If you don't know what that means, go search it up. It's something that I love and appreciate. The creativity of the almost endless range of characters to fight as, the community, the love and passion, etc. There's lots there. And it's something that I genuinely feel is the epitome of internet collaboration. I especially love the variations of specific characters, like the ungodly amount of Ronald edits, such as Evil Donald, Dark Ronald, and so many more. I like to play Mugen a lot, usually with my friends. I like to pair up the most equally insanely OP characters against each other and see who wins, usually out of boredom. I like to download some new characters. One day I decided to go and find any Ronald variants that nobody has heard of. After a lot of searching, I ended up finding an interesting Ronald variant named Liquid Ronald. Instead of being a color swap like usual, it was instead something unexpected. It was the regular Ronald sprite, but with the liquefy tool used on it to hell and back. To such a degree that you couldn't make out his face at all. He was insanely overpowered. All of his moves were insta-kills. If you threw one successful punch or kick or whatever at most characters, they would drop dead instantly, and Liquid Ronald would win. Obviously, there were times I lost, and Liquid Ronald was defeated. He wasn't unbeatable, you just had to get somebody more or equally overpowered. But it was still very interesting. I would get a friend to play as whatever character they would think was going to beat me. Then I would pick Liquid Ronald and win within a matter of seconds. I had actually loved this character. All of his sprites were just lazy edits of normal Ronald, but his comical amounts of power made it all worthwhile. This is the most important part. A few weeks ago, I connected some controllers to two monitors and invited my friend over to play Mugen, using said controllers. We had decided that it could be interesting to play it this way, instead of just doing it while being in different houses. He had only usually come over to play Mario Kart, Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Edition, Mario Wonder, etc. This was new to an extent. I will not be revealing my friend's name, as I don't want to reveal any personal information about him. We had been consistently playing on and off, switching between characters. My friend had been consistently playing as Peppa Pig, who was surprisingly overpowered, and Homer. He did sometimes pick other characters, but it was usually just those two. I had been picking characters that would be a fair fight against his picks, up until one point where I selected Liquid Ronald. My friend let out an audible groan upon seeing I had picked him, and I laughed. He picked Peter Griffin. He was immediately one-hit killed. I decided to go get a sprite. My friend had picked Dark Ronald, which meant this was probably going to be a longer fight. On my way to the fridge, I heard my friend yelling at me to hurry up. Once I got back into the room, we pressed play. Though, unlike all the other times where I had played Liquid Ronald, something interesting happened. He seemingly looked down in what looked like shame, and whenever he got hit, he would just take it. He would vibrate left and right for a few frames, before going back to looking down in shame. I was angrily mashing the buttons. The more I mashed, something began to happen around Liquid Ronald. Text. White text that read, "Stop it," or "I don't want to," would surround him. Safe to say, me and my friend were very confused by now. The music was completely absent. If I remember correctly, I think the stage we picked was a Minecraft forest, for those who will end up asking under the comments and replies of this post. But suddenly, the controls started to work, and the music came back in. I actually had a surprisingly fair fight, as Liquid Ronald and Dark Donald were both equally overpowered. I won. After I had won, Liquid Ronald went back to looking down in shame. The white text appeared again. Is it over? I was actually really interested in continuing to use Liquid Ronald against those who were equally overpowered, instead of just being unfair for the laughs. So we went again. This time, I had played as Evil Donald, and my friend picked Liquid Ronald instead. I actually lost this time, and I shook his hand in respect. Liquid Ronald was staring directly at the screen now. Please stop. My friend and I became interested in the white text that would appear, so we speculated on what it meant. We didn't come to an answer, but it intrigued us nonetheless. We continued fighting, thinking that the text would form a sentence after a certain point. Also, it was just fun, obviously. I played as Sonic.exe because he was there, and he played as Liquid Ronald. We also spawned Freddy Fazbear. After Liquid Ronald destroys both of them, the white text appears again. Why won't you stop? Isn't this enough for you? Various rounds later, after some rounds, the white text would stop appearing. We sometimes would spawn Liquid Ronald in as a bot. Every time we did this, he simply wasn't there, and the stage was entirely devoid of Liquid Ronald. Eventually, one of the times after we won, I realized my Sprite can was empty, and I went to go get a Kool-Aid jammer from the fridge instead. I walked back into the room to see my friend ushering me to come over and look at what was happening. Liquid Ronald was inside of what seemed to be a dilapidated home. Not abandoned, but the house looked very unkempt. The room was very pixelated. Liquid Ronald was down to his knees, and his head down, seemingly in shame like last time. But his head suddenly jerks up with the sound of a bell toll. The bell toll would continuously play as the scene went on. The white text appeared once more. I am held by strings. I would mash buttons over and over, attempting to get a response. I can't see correctly. All I see is death. All I hear are screams. All I feel is pain. Another long pause, and after the pause, the bell toll began to become louder and lower pitched. Why? You find this entertaining, don't you? The bells became quicker in succession, overlapping into a bassy rumble, killing us over and 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 over. The noise got louder as the text lingered on screen. Suddenly, all the bells stopped. Stop it. I don't want to fall into the dark. I'm scared. After more button mashing, the game crashed on us. A loud mess of high-pitched tones, screams, static, glass shattering, and other loud noises accompanied it. The game window closed, and my backdrop was turned into the image of the dilapidated house, just as pixelated. After restarting the game, we found that Liquid Ronald was gone. He was nowhere to be found. However, the download link for Liquid Ronald still existed. Or at least I thought. It was deleted. It was nowhere to be found. No matter how hard I searched, the link was gone. The download and everything related to Liquid Ronald was gone. I decided to post this because I didn't know what else to do. I searched on every search engine, even resorting to Yahoo, but I couldn't find any answers. If you have any, comment on this post. I need answers. And that was Liquid Ronald, written by dibbingsauce. Again, how many stories am I going to read from this dude? Before I get into the review, I want to say that I actually did suggest a Mugen creepypasta from dibbingsauce, because from the stories I've read that he made, they mostly consist of internet media. And after reading the Go Animate creepypasta, every single one of them that he wrote, I felt like he would do a fantastic job at something like this. And what do you know? This is what he came up with. So, review time. Dibbingsauce, I believe that this is your best work. the idea of this character feels as if he had all of this hard coded into his files before he was inserted into the character folder of Mugen. It makes you really feel like he's sentient, even though it's possible that he isn't. He's feeling as though he's forced to fight, and he begs you not to make him continue fighting. And I honestly find that really interesting. As for the house in the background, the dilapidated house that appeared on your desktop and in the game, it makes me really think that maybe this character, this edit, was based off of a real person who felt alone, useless, worthless, in a dark world with no one to talk to, no one to help. And that makes Liquid Ronald's character all the more captivating. Is this just an elaborate troll? Is this a cry for help? It does a really good job at the mysterious scale, and I honestly love it. It's amazing. Now, some people may mention that Sonic.exe's mentioning halfway through is kind of redundant and should be removed, considering that Sonic.exe is a bad creepypasta, and mentioning other creepypastas in your own creepypasta is kind of not a good idea. However, here's what I think. I don't think it matters, because, as mentioned in the very beginning, giving us knowledge on Mugen if we don't know what it is, I know we can just look it up, but it's kind of convenient this way. From the beginning, it's mentioned that Mugen has, like, a lot of characters. Lots and lots and lots. An endless range of characters to fight as. So it would make sense for Sonic.exe to at least be one of them. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if a turtle in a top hat became one of the characters. The grammar is much better. Like, a whole lot better than your past stories, dibbingsauce. I appreciate that. It's really well done. However, I do feel like we could actually... What if we got more insight on the dilapidated house in the background? What if the main character, the narrator, the protagonist, actually did some research on what that house was and where it came from, who owned it, why it's there. I'd love to see more of that in this story, generally. Dimming Sauce, I'm going to give this story an 8.5. Mainly because, while it is really good, it has a really good premise. I believe you could go into more detail on certain things that are mentioned, such as, like I said, the dilapidated house that appears on your screen. And possibly, maybe the bell toll, the meaning behind the bell toll. So yeah, that's an 8.5. But as I said before, this is simply my personal opinion, and if you disagree with me, that's fine. We all have our own opinions regarding these creepypastas. What did you think of the pasta? What would you do to improve upon it if you were the writer? And as always, I will see you all in the next narration. I love you all. Bless.